Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. I am so excited today. I have a guest on who I've known for decades, multiple decades. We've worked together on many different really interesting projects. He is a world acclaimed photographer. His name is Matthew Jordan Smith, and let me tell you about him. He's known for capturing personalities including Oprah Winfrey, Samuel L. Jackson in Tokyo, where he currently lives, New York City, and Los Angeles. He's photographed some of the leading Black celebrities, as well as just celebrities in general, people who are bold-faced names in our culture, capturing the essence of who they are. And in fact, Essence matters because where we met was when I was working at Essence as a fashion editor, and we did a lot of great work together. Matthew has published 3 books, including Sepia Dreams and Lost and Found, that showcase his storytelling skills. And never mind, he's done photographs for lots of other people's books as well. With appearances on America's Next Top Model and exhibitions in Beijing, Matthew has received awards such as the Western Digital Spotlight Award and the Microsoft Icons of Imaging Award. He is currently an ambassador for Nikon. He'll tell us about that too. But why we are talking to him today is because he has created a new book that is just so great. It is called ARETHA Cool, The Intimate Portraits, which offers an intimate look into Aretha Franklin's life through Matthew's lens. Please join me in welcoming Matthew Jordan Smith.
Hello, Harry. Good to see you again. Oh my God, it's been so long.
Oh my goodness, it has. So you're in Japan. Let's start there. So it's like a gazillion hours between us. What time is it where you are?
It's now 2:30 in the morning here in Japan with the time change that just happened in the States.
Right, right. And what took you to Japan? Because I met you when you were in New York City and we were doing tons of work together. What got you to Japan?
It's a long story. I went the first time in 1999 and went on a whim. And I just photographed Leon. Remember Leon from, Five Heartbeats? And at the end of the shoot, this is the week before I left to go to Japan for the very first time. And I'm going by myself just because I wanted to go and experience Japan. So Leon says, "Oh, what are you doing for the summer?" I said, "Well, I'm going to Japan on vacation in a few weeks." He says, "What dates?" I told him the date. He said, "I'll be there too. I'm hosting a reggae concert there." So we were here at the same time, hanging out.
Oh my
I
goodness.
love the city. And I came back to visit like a dozen times before I ever moved here. I just kept on coming back and back and back and fell in love with it. Met my wife here. Met my wife actually the first time I came over interviewing. Leon was doing an interview for a radio station and she was the interpreter. And
Wow.
we became friends back then. And, 20 odd years later, we hooked up again and got married. And crazy story. But yeah, now Tokyo is home. Yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Wow. I mean, what an adventure. And where are you from, Matthew?
New York originally, from Brooklyn.
From New York. Okay. You know
Born
what?
in
I
Brooklyn.
always think of you as having roots in the South. Do you?
I
In your
do. I
family?
do. Yeah,
Where's
I was
your
raised in the South. We moved down south when I was 7 in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina.
That's
And
what I remember, that you have
yes,
those good old Southern roots, and now you're all
definitely.
across the world. I love that. And, I just was rummaging through some old pictures, Matthew, and Tyra Banks has been
Ah,
also part of your life for a long time. And
long time.
was it St. Croix that we went to with Tyra Banks? The
Oh my
old
God, no.
I think it was St. Croix.
No, it wasn't St. Croix. I
Was
went
it?
with her to Jamaica. Mark Baptiste went with her to St. Croix.
Okay, so that wasn't even you, but so Mark Baptiste and I went to St. Croix with Tyra when she was a baby, when she very
Yeah,
first started
I remember that.
as a model, and then you have years of photographing her.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I did her first calendar in Jamaica way back in the early '90s, and have shot her a trillion times since then, and still friends actually.
I love that. I mean, we back in the 90s, that was a really special time, I
Oh
think,
yes, it
for especially
was.
for Black culture. and I was running the fashion department at Essence. We did some really cool shoots together, but also there was a small group of Black photographers who were skyrocketing, and you and Mark and a couple of others being among them, which was really exciting.
It's
That
an
was
amazing time.
that was it. And so for Essence, tell us who some of the people are who you photographed, uh, capturing their beauty and majesty on the cover of Essence.
My first celebrity cover was Halle Berry, which is kind of funny thinking about that now. She was my very first celebrity. Well, first like a Hollywood celebrity. Then Sam Jackson, Vanessa Williams, Oprah, of course. My God, it just goes on. I shot so many covers of so many people. Star Jones. Geez, it was an amazing time to be there in the 90s, photographing so many different people and having a ball with Essence and traveling all over as well. And, St. Lucia, remember that trip, St. Lucia?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. It was great. It was
Yeah.
absolutely great.
I definitely, one of my favorite experiences that was ongoing at Essence was traveling the world and documenting the many cultures of people of African descent. Just sharing that beauty with the magazine. You got this incredible experience of working with Aretha Franklin. This book, ARETHA Cool. I know many people who were part of her life at different points along the way. And, we've seen these documentaries, a couple of them about her, especially when she very first started.
Yes.
What you have is the last decade or so of her life, which is, this precious time as she is now an elder.
Yes.
She is still fabulous, like every elder in the church you've ever seen. She's got her hat, she's got her hairdo, she's got the red fingernail polish, always her, and the jewelry. She loved pearls and diamonds, because I was looking
Pearls, diamonds, and hats.
pearls, diamonds, and hats. So how did you come to work with Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul?
It's funny, I was doing a lot of different music artists also at that time, in the 90s for sure. And I'd met her longtime publicist, Gwendolyn Quinn, and Gwendolyn introduced me to Aretha. Aretha was looking for a new photographer, and Gwendolyn told her about me and told her about my work, showed her the covers I'd shot for Essence. And then Aretha said, I want to work with him. And she actually called and booked me. And she called my agent, booked me for the first shoot. And then I sent her flowers. I sent her yellow roses. I read that she loved yellow roses. So I sent her a dozen roses and a note saying, here's to a great shoot. And then the day before I flew out from New York to Detroit to do that first shoot, she called me. And I remember, and this is like not an assistant or a manager, this is Aretha calling. So I get this call, don't know who it was, a private number back in the day. And I'm like, who is this? So I answer the phone and she says, Jordan. She started calling me Jordan from the very beginning. Jordan, this is Aretha Franklin. I'm like, oh my God. And we just talked about the shoot, talked about the food on the shoot, and we bonded right there. Like just hearing her voice in person and talking for like 15 minutes, I felt a connection then. So when I got to Detroit for that very first shoot and we met, she felt like somebody I knew from church, or she felt like my sister, actually. She reminded me so much of my younger sister. It was crazy. That first meeting, we definitely bonded. This is like 2005. And I gave her as a gift at the end of the shoot, my very first book, Sepia Dreams. And she's flipping through the book. This is at the end of the shoot. And she looks at me and she's like, why am I not in this book?
And tell us what Sepia Dreams is about.
Sepia Dreams is 50 African-American celebrities talking about their dreams and how they got started in their career. So she's seen these pictures of Vanessa Williams and Smokey Robinson and all these other great people in the book, Lena Horne. And she's like, why am I not in this book? And I said, Miss Franklin, I promise you on a future book, I will correct that. So all these years later, here I am, being true to my word to her and doing a book just on her because she deserves that.
Absolutely. She certainly does. So you create this rapport really starting with paying attention, doing the research and good manners. That you sent her yellow roses because you learned from your research that that's what she loved. And I tell my clients all the time, Matthew, and when you pay attention and do your research, you never know what is going to happen. The world opens up when you
It
pay
really does.
attention. It really does. And in the book, there's a beautiful bouquet of yellow roses that you have a photograph of, as well as there's one shot of her holding a single yellow rose, which is just beautiful. So, I'm curious at this stage in her life because well, actually, you have captured her across multiple stages of her life because you see her form change, her
Yes.
physicality changes a lot. And, for women, we struggle with our changing form just anyway, but somebody who's a celebrity like she was, I wonder if she was ever self-conscious about her changing body and how you were able to make her feel comfortable.
That's funny. The one thing about Aretha, she was extremely confident
Mm.
in every stage of her life. It didn't bother her at all, and I love that about her. She
Mhm.
was very comfortable in her own skin, and she carried that confidence everywhere she went. Um, she was always joke also about, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna have, like" we always had soul food on the set. Sometimes she'd say, "Oh, I want, to use the Shark Bar to cater for the shoot." I'm like, "All right, cool. Remember the Shark Bar back in the
The
day?"
sha So, yeah, for folks who don't know, the Shark Bar was the place. So, again, this was wait, I think probably opened in the '90s, but they were open for a long time, so into the early
Yeah.
2000s. This was a time of so-called buppies, right? Black urban professionals. A
Yes.
lot of people went to
Yes.
bars and restaurants and hung out after work, and this place was super elegant. People came from everywhere. Locals went there, but also if you were ever traveling, that was a place to go to see beautiful Black people who were
Yes.
dynamic and wanting to connect with each other, and she was ordering food from there. I love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
from there, from Beef Smith's, any soul food spot in the city or in Detroit, she wanted food from there, and often she would bring in Detroit, she would actually make food and bring it to the set,
Wow. Oh, that's
which is
nice.
cool, which was very, very cool, and she'd always joke about that. She'd joke that, "Oh, I'm doing Weight Watchers now, so I can't have this, but you guys can have all this good food," and
Well, and so in the book, there are lots of amazing pictures of Aretha Franklin, but also these sort of insider photos. There are a couple of photographs from your calendar. Your
Yeah.
those and you had a big calendar. It was the like what 8 by 12 or something, and
Yes.
I saw in there fried chicken. you know, shoot with Aretha Franklin. At the top it says fried chicken. And then there's one double page spread that has contact sheets. For those people who remember film, that
Yes.
the way that film worked, you had contact sheets and you would look at all the little pictures and make your selects. And there's a picture of her hand reaching in for a piece of fried chicken. I love that so much.
I think you're the first one to catch that.
I loved it. I loved it. It's so good. It's so real. A lot of times people hide who they are, and what was clear is I'm not hiding. I'm being myself. This is what I want to
No.
eat, and I'm eating it.
And I love that about her. She was very real, no smoking glass, she was herself all the time
I love
and
that.
made you feel comfortable. I mean, I felt so much like, "Oh, I know her. I feel her. I felt her energy." She'd rejoice sometimes at shoots. And, all my, like, people in my studio who, don't know what that is, they wonder, "Oh, what's she doing?" I'm like, "Oh, no, she's praising God." And
Mm.
nobody would know that but her and I
Wow.
loved all that stuff.
Well, I mean, she certainly was a woman of the church first. Let me
Yes.
remind folks, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole, and it is my honor today to have my friend Matthew Jordan Smith in the house talking to us about this wonderful book that he has just created. It's a book of photographs, a a few little essays, but mainly photographs, and it is called Aretha Cool, The Intimate Portraits. And it is exactly what it says. It's intimate portraits of the last decade or so of Aretha Franklin's life, something that most of us had no window into except for occasional sightings of Aretha Franklin. They are now captured in a book documenting her life and her very intimate experience with this gifted photographer, Matthew Jordan Smith. So, Matthew, there are a number of things, and we mentioned it earlier, but I want to go into a little bit more detail. If you look at the pictures, you notice she wore color. She wore every kind of pearl you can imagine. There were lots of pearls in her world, and diamonds and hats. I mean, she was dramatic. So, what was
She
she like
was.
when she would come on set? Did she ever dress down, or was it always a dramatic moment?
It was always dramatic moments, always. Maybe at the end of the shoot, she'd be dressing down as she's leaving or she's coming in, but she always talk about what she's gonna wear. And not only on the shoots, we talked on the phone a lot. She called me, oh yeah, I'm ready to do the Kennedy Center. I'm gonna wear this and I'm gonna do this talk show. I'm gonna wear that. She'd always talk about what she's gonna wear and how, she wanted to shoot in that dress during our photo shoot. As a matter of fact, one of my last conversations with her, we talked a lot in 2017. We were trying to do a shoot up until the time she passed. We were trying to do a shoot. And she called me 2 days before she left to go to New York. She's doing a benefit with Elton John.
Hmm.
So she's telling me about what she's going to wear. We're talking about it. She wants to do a talk show. She said, I'm doing this talk show also. I want to wear that dress on this shoot. She said, I'm going to do this
Very
thing for,
specific.
yeah, very specific, all the time, all the time.
And so one of the stories that we, 'cause a lot of us have heard stories, but we don't know whether they're true or false. So we've got you, Matthew. We've got you, Jordan, as she called you, to tell us if is this true or not. Did she ever ride on a plane, or when she was coming from Detroit to New York, was that a train or a car?
She did not fly.
That's
She
what I
had a
thought.
fear of heights, period. Even the studio, I could not use a studio on a high floor. She wouldn't go. No, had to
So
be
great.
low
So how did she
with a ground
travel?
floor. By bus,
Bus.
by special bus, with her and her whole team, bodyguards, the whole nine. They did not fly.
Wow. Where did she like to stay when she came to New York?
Oh my god, she stayed in the same places all the time. I forget the name of the hotel, but it's where everybody stayed at one time. It's in the 50s,
The
like the
Carlisle.
the Carlisle.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was her
Bobby
spot.
Short. Bobby Short was the act who performed there for
Wow.
decades. And I figured, I didn't know, but I know that when you say in the 50s, the Carlisle was the primo hotel where, our grand dames and et cetera stayed. So that's wonderful. That's where she stayed. Okay, here's another one. Another, I got all my questions. So as I have read about her and just studied how interesting she was, I know that at least in the early days, so I don't know whether this was still true towards the end, she didn't trust anybody with her money. And when she performed, the story goes that she had her pocketbook coming with her on stage, and before she would perform, they had to put cash in that pocketbook, whatever the payment was for that gig, because she had been burned. People said they were going to pay her and they didn't. So she wasn't performing anymore until that money went in her bag. True or false?
I never physically witnessed it where somebody paid her, but yes, she always had that purse, and that purse was a big deal.
Yes,
As a
yes.
as a matter of fact, my very first shoot with Aretha, I'm there with my assistants, and we were shooting in the studio in Detroit. And I had this big, beautiful chaise lounge I've rented for the shoot. She's like lounging on it, looking amazingly cool. And I tell my assistant, because she has the purse on the shot. I'm like, oh, she brought her purse to the set. So I tell my assistant, go over and move that purse. Put it on the floor out the shot. So my assistant walks over to grab her purse and move it onto the floor. and she grabs his hand. She said, "Boy, don't ever touch my purse."
That is funny. And that shot and that story are in Aretha Cool, so you'll have to look at the
Yes,
book and you will
yes.
see. And the purse is in the foreground, and it's a fabulous, I think it's a Louis Vuitton purse in this shot, and she looks fabulous, and the bag is right there with her. But Aretha was old school. I mean, think about it. She was from a previous generation, and
Yeah.
a lady had her purse, and you dare not touch the purse. The purse never touched the ground either, by the way, because then that's bad luck for your money.
Yes.
But you had your purse, and nobody could touch your purse except for who you gave permission to touch it. So she schooled your assistant and you
And
on
my
that one.
mother was the same way, and,
Of
she's like, "You
course.
should have known better." I'm like, "Wow, that's right."
Yeah, well, and you know what? Sometimes we have to remember that there are lots of lessons that we get from our elders. Now, I recall a time, here's one of the awkward things that I witnessed, and it's very true for a lot of our celebrities as they transition into, eldership, right? So this was I was still at Essence, and it was, I think, an Essence Awards celebration, and Aretha Franklin was being honored. And the way that Aretha Franklin was being honored, Patti LaBelle was on stage singing her music. And Patti LaBelle at that point was, I mean, a megastar. Aretha has been a megastar since she was a teenager, but Patti LaBelle, in terms of pop culture, had eclipsed Aretha Franklin because she was pop culture, and Aretha was soul. Well, Patti starts singing Aretha songs, and I was with an eye shot of Aretha Franklin, and she was not having it. She was not happy. She did not like that this young woman was up there singing her music. She wanted to be singing it herself. It was so interesting to see that, that this was a moment, that passing the baton is tough. And honestly, for
Yeah.
Aretha Franklin, she didn't pass the baton. Who's she gonna pass that baton to? She's the queen of
No,
soul.
absolutely.
And you have a story in the book that's, I mean, a little different but similar. Can you tell the story that you wrote about playing music in the studio and how she reacted to you playing other people's music? Tell that story.
It's funny because I always made playlists for everybody I shot. I still have them. As a matter of fact, I still have the iPod even right here. I still have all my old iPods, and on these old iPods, I have a list for Oprah, a list for Shoot for Angela Bassett, and I have Aretha's mix on here also. But before I made Aretha's mix, that very first shoot I did with her, I made a list of popular music and like things I thought she would like. And there's like Smokey Robinson and a lot of Motown classics, but I also threw in some of like whoever was hot and new at the time. Well, not new, but just the hot music at the time. And when I played that music, I could tell she wasn't really into it like I thought she would be. I mean, she loved Smokey, of course, and all the other Motown hits, but she didn't react the way I thought she was. So I was asking her, like, "Oh, well, who do you like as a new artist today?" And she's like, "Me." And I thought she didn't hear me. So I said it again to emphasize, "Oh, who do you like as a new artist today?" And she stopped and she said, "Me," to make sure I heard it. And that was my cue. Like, she never asked me to play certain music ever. But when I left that shoot, that stuck with me. So I went back and started saying, you know what? Let me just experiment and see what she'd like hearing her own music. Most music artists do not want to hear her music.
Right. That exactly.
They do not want to hear it. They're tired of hearing it. Don't play it. So I experimented and made a list of my favorite Aretha Franklin music. I had a backup also of regular music of like all Motown stuff as well.
Right.
And on that next shoot I did with her, I played that playlist. And I watched her reaction. And I watched everybody else in the room and their reaction to hearing my favorite Aretha Franklin songs.
Mhm.
That's another story altogether that nobody's ever touched. I've never talked about that. What helped me
Tell us
find
more. We wanna know. Tell us.
in the the late 90s, I was dating somebody who was really into Aretha Franklin's music. And I'd also grew up, of course, knowing Aretha's music and watching Blues Brothers, all that stuff. But
Mhm.
I wasn't like a mega fan. But I was dating somebody who was a mega fan of her work. And I remember being in a car when we were driving from New York to DC, and we're playing this music, and it's the first time I really heard it, like in my soul. And I fell in love with Aretha's music then.
Mm.
So, like, 5, 6 years later, I get hired to shoot Aretha. I'm like, oh my God. I'm a fan. I'm a super fan. So I put this list together of my favorite Aretha music, and I played it. And watching her react was incredible, because very often she would begin humming or singing along to a song. And it happened over and over and over again. And that helped make for an incredible situation in the studio. I got very comfortable doing it. I played that same playlist on every shoot from that point on. And at
Did
one
she ever
point,
talk about the music? Did she ever tell you stories about the songs?
never, but something happened very odd on the last shoot we did. She had been sick, stopped for a while, went through this recovery period and came back. And on that comeback, she had lost a lot of weight, of course. We're doing this shoot, and she had a lot of energy. She's dancing to songs. And I'm doing this one image, and this one song comes on, and she has this weird look on her face, and she says, "What album is this song on?" Everybody in the room's looking around, and I say, "This song is on the, A Rose is Still a Rose CD." And she says, "Oh, yeah." And then later on after the shoot, when the bodyguards came to me and says, "How did you know that?" And I said, "A long time ago." I wish I told Aretha this story. I never told her this story. A long time ago in the 90s, I'm shooting Quincy Jones for Lloyd Boston's Men of Color.
Right.
And Quincy comes in with this album that he wants to hear, CD he wanted to hear, and it was Aretha's music. And he played this one song over and over again. He wanted to hear this one song. And it was that song on that album that Aretha was playing that day. And she's like, "What song is this album on?" I'm like, "Oh." So that song is special to me.
So, I mean, all these touch points, we never know how our experiences will impact others, or
Never.
even when. I mean, that was decades before.
Decades, yeah, yeah.
And thank God you have a good memory.
Right now.
Hey, I write everything down. I don't confess to having a good memory, but I write it down so that I could possibly remember at another point. That's so funny. Hey y'all, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are in conversation with Matthew Jordan Smith, who is tuning in from Tokyo, Japan. This is the wonders of technology that make it possible for us to connect in any way possible. And honestly, this is one of the positive things that came out of the pandemic. We realized when we could not get on planes to be together that we could still be together.
Yes.
And we have figured out how to do it, and I'm so grateful for it. So, Matthew, I want to talk about, this is Dream Leapers. So many people who are tuned in probably wish that they could be a photographer. And, my husband, who is a photographer, George Chinsey, he talks about, he's been saying this for a long time. Everybody thinks they're a photographer because they've got a phone. And that does not make them a photographer. Although even the phone companies now do blow-ups of the pictures that some people take using that technology. But I'm curious for you. When did you know in your heart of hearts that you wanted to be a photographer? And then
Mhm.
how did you prepare yourself? How did you study? How did you learn?
It's funny. My father taught me photography as a way to get over my shyness as a kid. We moved from New York to South Carolina, and ostracized at the time because of my strong, at the time, Brooklyn accent, from the kids down south. And I guess I just didn't fit in. I felt like I didn't fit in. And my father taught me photography as a way to, like, connect with people. That was the very beginning. And I think photography kind of found me. It gave me a way to connect. It gave me a way to express myself, to share my life, and to document legacy. So it found me. I never thought it could be a career. I just loved it. And somebody gave me a book about Gordon Parks early on in my career. And reading about Gordon Parks, um, and seeing his life, I'm like, oh wow, you can do this as a career? This can be a career? Gordon turned that light bulb on for me.
Mhm.
And that's what led me to go and major in photography in art school. Then I dropped out of art school in Atlanta and moved to New York to be a photo assistant. And that from that point on, never looked back. Photography is all I've ever done my entire life. My only job has been photography. My hobby is photography.
Your love is
My
photography.
love is photography.
That is so interesting. I want to take a poll now of all of my photographer friends, especially Black photographers, because same is true for George. For my husband, it was Gordon Parks. It
Oh,
was
wow.
Gordon Parks. It was Gordon Parks. I mean, he tells this story that learning about Gordon Parks said, oh, I can do this. I
Yeah,
can actually do this as a job, and I can make money doing this thing that I love so much. And I'm going to guess that there are multiple generations of people who learned about Gordon Parks who have had the same experience because, I mean, he was a true Renaissance man. Not only was he a photographer, he was a filmmaker, he was an author, he was a musician.
yeah.
He's like Quincy Jones. He was a true Renaissance
Renaissance
man.
man.
And
Absolutely.
like just the creativity that oozed out of him. And also, he was what they called a race man. Gordon Parks was not afraid to stand up for Black people, to showcase Black people in our majesty and
Yes.
truth in ways that, many people didn't and don't want to be known.
Very true. Very true. And I remember reading his book as a kid. Like, I got all his books as a kid and started reading this one. I forget which book it is, where he's talking about, his upbringing, and he's going through all these, he's went through some hard times where he's like,
Sure.
he could have been killed so many times. And I'm like, oh my God, it's just amazing that he made it through his childhood and then went on to become this amazing Renaissance man. But his story is just incredible. So
So,
if you
so
don't know Gordon,
I have to
read his
tell
book.
you one Gordon Parks story. This is a really good one. So the first book that I worked on is called Songs of My People. It's a book that was created in 1990 because I met George. I met my husband working on that book.
Oh, wow.
And it was created in 1990, and there were 50 Black photographers who were dispatched all over the United States to document a week in the life of Black America. And I was the editorial assistant. I wrote all the captions and I dealt with the words. So one of my responsibilities, and I'm a young editor at Essence, I was still green, right? The person who wrote the intro to this book was Gordon Parks. And and I, as the editor, was charged with contacting Gordon Parks to ask him about some edits that I felt were needed for his article. So Matthew, at Essence, I talked to all kinds of celebrities, even though it was early on. There, Black celebrities came through the doors of Essence all the time. This is a different level. This is Gordon Parks. I'm 20 something. I'm like, are you kidding me? I called him. They gave me his phone number. This is when it's a telephone. We pick up the receiver. I called. It rings, 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 and then after a few rings, he answers the phone. Hello. I said, "Oh, Mr. Parks, this is Harriette Cole calling." I'm all nervous, and we had a scheduled call. I've called to talk to you about the edits. My voice had to be so high pitched. And he says, "Well, hold on a minute, honey. I'm taking a shower. Give me a minute." And he puts the receiver down and goes back into the bathroom to complete his shower. And I can hear the water. I can hear him taking a shower. And he finished his shower and came back. It was a few minutes. And you can imagine him drying himself off and say, "Okay, honey, come on, let's talk." And because of that, I was completely disarmed and I wasn't nervous anymore. because it was like the most unusual experience you could ever imagine, right? And then I said, "Well, I have a few questions," and I told him what my questions were, and he answered every question, and he told me that they were good questions, and he gave me, responses. He completed the edits. He was not offended that this young woman is questioning him. It was a beautiful experience because he was a really fine writer. And here I am as this new editor asking him questions, and he empowered me and also helped me to relax. It was beautiful.
He was incredible. He's in my first book as well, and oh my god, when I first met him, a real gentleman, makes you feel comfortable. You're right. At his place up, by the UN. Yeah, he was the best.
He was the best. So when you were back to Aretha Franklin, when you had the opportunity to photograph her over all of these years, to look for a fresh image, because you're photographing a woman who it's the same person and it's the end of her life.
Mhm.
You don't necessarily know when the end is going to be, but she's an older woman. And how are you approaching what is your process for approaching her to find something new?
Every shoot I do, no matter who it is, I'm trying to find that iconic image. I'm trying to find that iconic image. So every moment I want to try to find an image that's going to be the image that stands out. So before every shoot, we always talk about the idea. She'd always have her ideas that she wanted. It always changed like 3 or 4 times before the shoot, but she always had all these ideas for the shoot on how she wanted to look. Very often she'd say, "Oh, I love this picture that you did of this person. I want to do a shot like that." She called me once and said, "That picture of Tyra Banks,
Mhm.
that's a hot picture." This is after Obama was elected as president. She had sung. She's like, "I want to do a picture like this, but in one of my hats."
And the picture, by the way, which is in the book of Tyra Banks, Tyra is such a stunning woman with those light eyes and just she this is an arresting photo that you have taken of her where she's coming out of a black background, and it stops you in your tracks. It definitely is an iconic photo of her. There's so many things about the fact that Aretha Franklin would say, "I want to look like that." Somebody who's like 50 years younger than she is and iconic in her own way. And she could see herself in that she really did have vision.
She did. Like with music, she'd take somebody's song and redo it and make it her own.
Mm.
Same with the pictures. She'd say, "Okay, I want to make that my picture." That was her. She was confident. She's like, "Oh, that's cool, but I want to do it my version." And
And so
she
what
did.
made you decide to call it Aretha Cool? Why is cool important in the title?
Oh, wow. Aretha was definitely known as the Queen of Soul, but to me, she was the Queen of Cool in so many ways. When we talked on the phone, she'd always say, like, instead of saying, like, "Yeah, yeah," she'd say, "Cool, cool." And that's what I remember so much, her saying the word cool all the time as like her word. And I'm like, it's got to be Aretha Cool because she was the coolest. And that's the word she used on the phone with me all the time.
Mm.
Cool, Jordan, cool.
I love that she called you Jordan. That was she just claimed that from the moment
From the very
that
first
yeah,
moment.
that's so you have a couple of pictures in the book of her and Billy D. Williams.
Yeah.
And Billy D. Williams just came out with a memoir just a couple weeks ago, and I had the honor of interviewing him, Matthew, at the Schomburg. And what an incredible human being he is I think he turns 87 in a couple of weeks. And
Oh,
because I
wow.
said 86, he says almost 87. I said, all right, now let's not short shrift you at all. But you have had the occasion of being in the company of all these people. So if you remember that moment of being with Aretha and Billy D. Williams, take us into that. Because Billy D. Williams, for anybody who doesn't know, he was our first black heartthrob, the first black
Yeah.
leading man, in Lady Sings the Blues again, with Diana Ross and later Mahogany, with Diana Ross and plenty of other films, but he was called America's new heartthrob in a newspaper in LA when he first went out there. They showed it to us at the Schomburg, and he almost broke through for it to be across race, but he was a little bit too early for his moment for that to happen. But take us into the experience of Aretha Franklin and Billy Dee Williams.
Yes, I remember that so well. That was at an after party. Aretha loved her after parties. And that particular party, it wasn't like a zillion people. There's a lot of people there, but not like some parties where you have a lot of people, because she had those too. But this one was more intimate. And I like this one because it was so intimate. There's like Angela Bassett there with Courtney B. Vance, and at the table where she's having dinner is her and Billy Dee. And she never left that table. Like, you know, people get up and walk around parties. That night she stayed, and she and Billy Dee talked the entire night.
I love
And
that.
you could see it was like this intimate conversation, and that they were just probably just going back and reminiscing about old times. Who knows? But I love that. Everybody came to them, but that whole night they talked, just the two of them.
He is charming. I'm going to say that man has not lost whatever that magic is that he has. So even though he was with the queen, I'm sure she was a little bit mesmerized too, because that's who he is. And he still is. So fun to see. I love that though. I also love that it was you who got to photograph her and spend time with her during this period, Matthew, because when you have respect for our elders, then you can showcase that. A lot of people are running after the young folks, which is nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people don't have the right point of view to come in and see our elders. Talk about that reverence for legacy and how it shows itself in your work.
It means everything. Like in the very beginning of my career, I just was thinking about the shoot. As I got older, I started thinking about the impact of images and how they affect us long after we've taken those pictures. So I started not shooting in the beginning. I just shoot pictures of, you know, the person on the set, because they were the images that be used for whatever. But as I got older, I started shooting everything. The moment people arrive, the moment they leave. There's a shot in the book of Aretha's car with just the yellow roses in the car. Every time I shot her, I'd always give her yellow roses. So the last shoot we're in Detroit and it's pouring rain and it's just the flowers in the car. I'm like, that's part of the legacy. I got to capture everything, every moment, because legacy is everything. And it becomes more precious as time goes on.
And there's one shot that I absolutely love of her foot and her shoe.
Oh, yeah.
Which is just beautiful. It's a jeweled Chanel pump. And again, I'm just going to say a lot of times, because I worked in fashion for so long, you know, if you're not having that slim little model foot, people might not want to shoot it. She didn't have that. And you made this beautiful. It's a beautiful shot.
I love that shot. I love that day. We're backstage. It wasn't a lot of people in the room. It's like maybe it's her hairstylist, Carlton, who just passed away, sadly. And Aretha, and one of her friends. And she has on these shoes and she's like playing with them. She's playing with the shoes. So I'm like, let me document these shoes. And she's like, yeah, get these shoes. And I'm like, I'm down there, like shooting just all these different angles of the shoe. And she's actually changing her foot, moving around, posing with her feet.
I love it. So you brought out the girly girl in her.
Yes. I love those moments.
I love it. Hey guys, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole, and we are talking with photographer extraordinaire Matthew Jordan Smith. He's telling us about this wonderful book that he has created called ARETHA COOL, The Intimate Portraits. It's the last decade or so of her life documented by Matthew in such a beautiful, beautiful group of images that really show us who she was. So Matthew, you also are a Nikon ambassador. Yes. I'm so curious. What does that mean?
So I live in Japan. So in America, they say Nikon, but everywhere else they say Nikon. I'm a Nikon ambassador. Nikon has about 15 photographers around the country that they honor by making us ambassadors. So we speak for them. I speak around the world for Nikon, here in Japan, going to Europe. I've been everywhere to speak on behalf of Nikon and show my work and document what it's like to be a photographer. I tell the story of my growth, what I'm shooting, how I'm shooting, and I use, of course, all Nikon gear. It was my first camera that I ever bought was a Nikon camera, Nikon, for those in the States. And it's just a way of you being honored by the company. They give us, we get a loan of the best, latest, greatest camera for the moment it's out. Then we got to turn it back in or buy it. So I've got many, many, many Nikon cameras.
And do you still shoot with film or exclusively digital?
I never stopped shooting film. I still shoot with film cameras. And I was looking at an old Nikon film camera yesterday. Oh, I said, oh, I should buy that one. I should have that one. You know, I still shoot film.
Well, there's a richness in the photos that you get from actual film that just you don't get it from digital.
Absolutely.
I mean, no. I know that's making us old school, but it's okay. It's true.
Well, even like the generation now, people in the 20s, the hot thing is to shoot film.
Yeah, because they figured it out. It's just not the same. We just have a few minutes left. Tell us a tall, beautiful African-American man living in Japan. I know you stand out. I mean, you can't help but stand out because you're not Japanese. What is it like navigating as one of the only?
It is an absolutely amazing experience. I've been telling everybody that they must come experience life in Japan, especially as a Black person. It's the safest place I've ever been in the world. Now, I just came back from being in the States for like over 2 months. And I'm reminded every moment of things I can't do, because of safety. Safety is a big part of our life we don't think about.
It's true.
And you don't have that fear, which is a different type of stress we all carry, living in America, or living anywhere outside of Japan, that you don't have here. And it opens you up to relax. You can go to a Starbucks that's crowded, leave your computer, your camera, which if you want to, I don't do that, but you can.
I bet you don't.
You can leave everything.
You're American. You're a New Yorker. You can't do that.
Exactly. You can leave everything there, go to the bathroom, go outside, take a call, and it's safe.
Mm.
If you at the same Starbucks leave like your wallet or your phone by mistake, and you walk out, you walk 2 blocks away, somebody's going to run you down and say, oh, you left your purse, or you left your wallet, or you left your. It's safe. It's a level of respect that I haven't seen anywhere else in the world. It's service on steroids. There's no tipping in Japan, but it's the best service of anywhere I've ever been in the world. And then, as for terms of being, African American, being Black, you don't have the fear that we carry around of being stopped by cops or whatever. And you feel safe and you're respected. You're not seen as being Black. You're seen as being a foreigner. Everybody who's a foreigner, who's not Japanese, is a foreigner.
Right.
So everybody comes in that one category as being a foreigner, and you're judged based on what you do and and as long as you don't cause any problems, robbing or whatever like that, you're respected.
That's
and it's
beautiful.
cool.
I'm so glad I asked you. That is cool. Matthew Jordan Smith, it's so good to be with you. It's been too long, my friend, but you've been doing great work. Congratulations on your book, ARETHA COOL, The Intimate Portraits. And people can get a copy through your website. Is that right?
Yes, ARETHACOOL.com. And the 15th is the day it comes out, and it'll be available after the 15th on Amazon. But right now you can pre-order, and there are 2 versions of the book. There's a standard edition, and there's a limited edition. The limited edition comes with a rare signed print that's not in either of the books. I've never made it before. There's only 100 copies of the special editions. They come in a signed and numbered clamshell enclosure. They have it's a different cover. It's an acrylic cover for the special edition. It comes with extra beautiful items as well, and even an audio device where I tell the stories of working with ARETHA Cool. Aretha Franklin.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you and congratulations. And I can't wait to hear like how fast you sell out.
Thank you. Actually, the special editions, there's only like 50 left. Well, actually 49 left.
Well, okay. So y'all, the time is now. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Harriette.
And thank you to all of you for tuning in to Dream Leapers. I told you it was going to be a great conversation, and go get your copy of ARETHA Cool right now. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.